there's something we all have in common. You see this right now. We're all visible to each other. However, what if one day you walked outside and no one could see you anymore? What if one day the world was filled with only invisible people? What if everyone became invisible? Would you be scared? What would happen next? In Harry Potter, there's a spell called Wingardium Leviosa, which means to levitate. But it is also applicable to the scenario we're talking about today, because that's exactly what happens when Hermione uses the spell to make that necklace float in the air. Something magical is happening, and we as an audience are just watching it. The word Leviosa comes from the Latin word levis, meaning light or slight. When something levitates, it floats in the air without any apparent force acting upon it. It seems as if gravity has no effect on the levitating object. This is how we'll start our story. Everyone suddenly becomes light, not weightless, but light. They become lighter than air and everything around them. And so they rise up into the sky. There will be chaos, of course. People will scream, they'll be scared, they'll try to grab onto things, but they'd better hurry up, because when they start rising, the buildings, cars, and furniture are going to keep them grounded. If they don't let go, these objects will slowly start floating away as well. Eventually, though, most people will understand what's happening and let go, letting themselves be carried away by the winds. Some will soar through the skies for hours before eventually coming back down. Maybe they land in someone's backyard. Maybe they end up in a tree. Maybe they get caught in a power line. Who knows? The point is, eventually, almost everyone returns to the ground. Only a few remain. The ones who caused this will obviously be the target of many questions. By the way, if you like this kind of video, don't forget to subscribe. It really helps us grow. Thanks for being here. So the first thing that will happen is that the world will stop working. We all know how important human labor is. All the services we use, all the infrastructure we have, all the food we eat, it's all the result of someone's labor. Take, for example, the electricity grid. This vast system of wires and equipment that brings power to our homes and businesses relies on the work of thousands of engineers, technicians, and support staff. Without them, the lights would go out and the power would cease to flow. The same goes for the water supply. Water treatment plants, water towers, and pipes are all maintained by workers who ensure that we have clean drinking water at all times. If these workers suddenly vanished, our taps would run dry within days. Then there's the food supply chain. From farmers and truckers to butchers and bakers, many people work to put food on our tables. Without their labor, grocery stores would be empty and we'd have to rely on our own gardening skills to survive. But then there's healthcare. Doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals are essential for keeping us alive and healthy. Without them, we'd be vulnerable to all sorts of diseases and injuries. And let's not forget about the legal and judicial system. Police officers, judges, and lawyers maintain order and protect our rights. Without them, society would descend into chaos and anarchy. The point is that without people, our world would grind to a halt. No more electricity, no more water, no more food, no more healthcare, no more safety. The world would literally fall apart. And yet some people would still be floating through the sky. The reason? Well, they were lucky. They weren't carrying anything heavy. They didn't hold on to anything. They weren't wearing anything heavy, and so they kept floating until they found somewhere to go. Perhaps they traveled across the globe until they reached a deserted island. Or maybe they stayed in the air for weeks, even months. We don't know. And while the lucky ones find themselves in a paradise, the unlucky ones are caught in the jet streams and are carried thousands of kilometers in a matter of hours. These people would be scared, confused, and most likely thirsty because after leaving the Earth's atmosphere, they would enter the jet stream, a very dry air current. Here they would face a new problem. At certain speeds and altitudes, the body can experience something called hypoxia, a condition in which the body doesn't get enough oxygen. This can cause disorientation, hallucinations, and even death. This is why airplanes carry oxygen tanks for their passengers and crew. It's also why pilots are trained to operate the plane in hypoxic conditions. But for those stuck in the jet stream, there's no such luxury. They're completely at the mercy of the wind and weather conditions. Some may be lucky enough to find an airplane, climb inside, and sneak into the cargo hold, or maybe even the cockpit. Others won't be so lucky and will wander the skies until they die of thirst, hunger, or cold. But let's say that somehow you managed to survive. Let's say that you were one of the few who landed on that deserted island. What would you do next? You would probably explore your surroundings, look for food and water, and try to figure out how to build a shelter. You would need to learn how to fish, hunt, and grow your own food. You would need to learn how to protect yourself from wild animals and the elements. Basically, you would need to learn how to survive on your own. In fact, you would have to become the world's greatest survivalist. Luckily, you wouldn't be alone. You would have the help of everyone else who had landed on the island. Together, you would build a community, a new society based on cooperation and sustainability. You would learn to live off the land, using its resources wisely and respecting its balance. You would create a new culture, one that valued simplicity, hard work, and self-sufficiency. In short, you would build a new world. It sounds pretty utopian, right? Well, it doesn't have to be. In reality, this new society would be far from perfect. There would be conflict, competition, and inequality. But let's be optimistic and assume that this new world is peaceful and prosperous. What would life be like? Well, it would be different for sure. For starters, there would be no more cars, roads, or highways. The island would be too small to support that much infrastructure. Instead, people would use bicycles, tricycles, or even walk to get around. There would be no more factories or mass production. Everything would be handmade, from tools to furniture to clothing. There would be no more malls or chain stores. People would trade their goods and services directly with each other. There would be no more money or currency. People would use a barter system instead. In short, life would be much slower and more simple. But it wouldn't be easy. There would be a lot of work to do. People would have to grow their own food, build their own houses, and make their own clothes. There would be no government to help them and no police to protect them. They would have to rely on themselves. So what would you do? Would you prefer to live in this new world or go back to the old one?